Kat mentioned, I'm Grant Cooper. I'm the Associate Manager of Data Analytics here at College Raptor. I'll be walking you through the tool today. So some of the things that we're going to walk through is we're going to discuss what a financial offer is. We're going to show you how to upload your financial offers to the College Raptor tool. We're going to learn how to understand things like cost of attendance, the grants and scholarships, and net price, some of the most important aspects of your financial aid offer. And then we're going to show you how to compare multiple financial aid offers based on things like net price and expected debt at graduation. So Kat, I will share my own screen now. There we go. Hopefully that looks good. So we'll start here on the College Raptor homepage. You'll see I'm already logged into my College Raptor account, which you will need to do in order to use the tool. If you haven't already made one, it only takes a couple minutes, and you can get a lot of extra great info on colleges and some college matches as well. But maybe if you're attending this demo, you're a little bit past that point. So we'll start with the financial aid offer comparison tool. So the first thing I want to get into is, what is a financial aid offer a financial aid offer? So some of you may have already received some from the colleges that you've been accepted to. If not, you might be receiving them over the next couple of months. They usually come in like March and April if you're planning to go to school in the fall of 2022. So we have a little sample here that you can look at. They have a lot of things in common, but one of the problems is that every college says their financial aid offer is a little bit different, and sometimes they can be hard to understand. So in general, you'll see things like the cost of attendance. Usually that's broken out into things like tuition and fees, housing and meals, as well as the indirect costs like your books, personal expensive, that kind of thing. And then also, perhaps more importantly, is what kind of scholarships they're going to offer you, and any grants they're going to offer you, as well as your loan options, and hopefully some form of your net price, which is the actual amount of money you're going to have to pay to go to the college. So that's going to be the most important number on this document. Some people get a little confused with these. Sometimes they'll get confused between a financial aid offer and an acceptance letter. Acceptance letter typically just tells you that you've been accepted to the college, and usually doesn't contain a lot of financial aid information. Usually these aid offers will come in a little bit after you've been accepted into the college. So like I said, a lot of these can be inconsistent between colleges. Some of them will not include all of the pieces. They may not include things like cost of attendance. They may not include the indirect costs. Sometimes they'll use different names for different things. One college might call it housing and meals. Another college could call it room and board. So it can get a little confusing, and hopefully this tool can make it easier to understand. So I'll go to my upload page. We'll start out with selecting a college. I have a few different colleges that we're going to go through. Just to get it out of the way, none of these are real financial aid offers. They're kind of dummy offers that we're going to use just for a demonstration. So the first one that we're going to use is for Stanford University, a pretty well-known college. You can select your academic year. The ones I'm going to be doing are for a freshman, which is the ones we typically see, but you can do it for any year in college that you or your student will be. So you also notice that we have a few different ways that you can upload your financial aid offer. You can text it to us if you have it in a file on your phone. You can do a file upload, which is what I'll do here in a second, or you can add all the information in manually. So I'll choose a file upload, find my Stanford one, and now I'll hit continue. So what the tool is doing is reading through each line of the file. This one is just a PNG, it's a picture. So it's pretty good at reading things like pictures or JPEGs or PDFs. These are all acceptable files that you could upload. It's read through each of the lines, parsed everything out, and now what it's going to let you do is make any important redactions to information. So something that's important to note is that you'll usually have some sensitive information on your financial aid form or your financial aid offer. These could be things like your name, maybe your address, maybe your student ID, sometimes your zip code, things like that, things that you don't want to upload into the internet for obvious reasons. So what this tool does is it goes through and preemptively picks out any information that might be sensitive. Like your name, it'll look through and see if your name's in there and pick it out. But you can also just go through manually and redact anything that you don't want in there just by clicking on it. And it won't be uploaded, it won't be stored anywhere, and nobody will be able to see it. So this one looks pretty good so far. Like I said, we're not using any real information for this demonstration, so we'll go ahead and continue. And next, it's going to bring me to my offer summary. So this is where we get to see a lot of those big numbers, like the tuition costs, the total cost of attendance, as well as grants and scholarships. So Stanford, it's no secret that it's got a pretty high cost of attendance, 63,000. I think this offer letter is actually a few years old too, so it's probably actually a little bit higher than that now. But what a lot of people don't know is that schools like Stanford and Ivy League schools are actually pretty generous with their grants and scholarships. So for this particular student, they're getting over $48,000 in grants. So while this big sticker price may seem intimidating, the actual net price, which is the important number that we're actually going to have to pay, it's not quite so bad. It's a little over $14,000. So this is the number that we really want to focus on when we're comparing our financial aid offers. We'll also look at a number of other important factors like estimated debt at graduation. So we're creating a number of assumptions when we calculate this. So for this particular student, we're estimating that they're going to graduate with about $12,000 worth of debt. So not too bad. It's only got, on our rating system, it's only one money bag. The more money bags we have, the worse off we're doing. So we're estimating the monthly payment is about $129 a month. And as a percentage of their estimated starting salary, it's only about 2.1%. So it's not so bad. So you might wonder how we're getting some of these numbers. So let's get into that. So for one, we estimate that the student and their family are paying this amount each year for college. And this is based off the student's EFC, which is taken from the College Raptor profile. The EFC is, or expected family contribution, is taken when you fill out the FAFSA. So that's a calculation that the government makes, and it's usually intended to be, how much do we expect this family can pay for college each year based on things like their income and assets. This is not always true. Sometimes a family could say, hey, I can't actually pay that much money. Sometimes they can say, oh, I can pay even more money and take out less debt. So it's really just an estimation, but we're going to estimate that this family is paying their full EFC. We're also estimating that the student will participate in a work-study program to help pay for the cost of attendance. We're also assuming that they're going to graduate in 4 years, which not all students do, and could be something to be prepared for. A lot of students will take 6 years, sometimes even 8 years. So colleges will often mark their success based off of things like a 6-year graduation rate. And then maybe some of you have picked up on this expected starting salary, and you might be wondering how we got to that number. So $74,255, that's the expected starting salary for this particular student, which is a pretty high number. And we're taking in a number of different factors to estimate that number. One of the most important factors is the college that the student is attending. So you can imagine at Stanford University, their graduates, they start out with a much higher starting salary than many other colleges. But we're also looking at a number of other things, such as the location of the student, how well that student does on test scores and their GPA. This is information that would be in your College Raptor profile. The location of the college, if you're going to college in the Bay Area, and expect to get a job there, typically salaries will be higher. And also your intended major, if you provided that information. So if your intended major is something like computer science or engineering, maybe, then typically those will have higher starting salaries as well. But I think the main driving factor behind this one is just that Stanford University. Most of those are going to be pretty high. So all of this looks pretty good. I'm going to hit submit. And these are all things that you can edit as well if some of those numbers didn't seem right, by going to the analyze and edit option. You know, if you think, hey, I can't really pay that $8,000, you know, maybe I can only afford 5,000. That's fine. You can go in and edit that. And now we'll see we're not making enough to cover the cost of college. So I'll hit adjust payments for me. And what it's going to do, it's going to add that extra money into the loan total up here. So this is going to usually be the last thing that we want to fill up on because we don't want to take out too many loans. But if we want to make that adjustment, we can. We can also, you know, decide to have a higher student contribution or take some money from the student's employment if they have a part-time job. That's fine as well. We can change the starting salary if you have a better idea of that. Most people usually don't before they start college, but that's fine. And there's another number of other things that you can change as well. Like if you get a private scholarship and you want to add that in there as well, that would be pretty good to do too. So I'll go back to my results. Ooh, I got some unsaved changes. That's fine. All right, I'm going to upload another one. This next one I'm going to do is for Wisconsin-Madison. Click in there. I'll do one more file upload, and the next one I'll do we'll add manually. So once again, it's reading through each line and picking out all the important pieces. It's going to take me to the redaction page. Once again, this is just a dummy letter. It doesn't have any real information, but if I wanted to, if I don't want people to know that my name is Buckingham Badger, I can, you know, redact that information. I'll hit continue, and it'll take me to my summary page. One thing you might have noticed is that this offer letter looks a little different than our last one. That's to be expected because, you know, no two colleges, or typically two colleges, don't do these the same. They're usually all a little bit different. Each college has their own method of, you know, what they think is important for the student to know, which can be confusing. So we've once again broken down to our most important elements. We got our tuition, much lower for University of Wisconsin-Madison. Total cost, it's only $28,000, but we're not getting quite as much in that grants and scholarships as we were for Stanford, only about $4,600 here. So our final net price for this one is going to end up being just over $23,000 a year. You see this one has a score of 2 money bags, which is not quite as good, but still not too bad. This is, you know, what we would call a medium debt burden. So we're expected to graduate with a little over $50,000 in debt. Monthly payment would be expected to be around $571 if you pay it over 10 years, which most people seem to do. And that would be about 12.5% of your starting salary. So for this Wisconsin-Madison student, they have not quite as high as a starting salary. Wisconsin-Madison is a public school. It's a great public school, but doesn't usually have you know, as high a starting salary as schools like Stanford. So same EFC here, same expected family contribution for the same family. Still expecting to graduate in 4 years and repay debt in 10 years. So I'll submit this one. We'll be able to see them side by side. Makes it pretty easy to compare. I'm going to add one more so we can just have 3 and we can, you know, hit all our different debt categories. So this one I'm going to add in manually. I'm going to pick USC. Now keep in mind that these net price trends are not universal. Every student's net price is a little bit different. we're saying for this particular student that, doesn't really exist, this might be an example of the costs. So since I'm not uploading anything here, I actually don't have a financial aid offer to go off of, but we'll just pretend for this demonstration. We do have estimates of what the cost of attendance would be. This is based off of, what they've charged in the past from statistics we've taken from the Department of Education. But if they've updated or changed it for any reason, you can add that in manually. I'll just use our estimates here.
Hey, Grant, we actually have a question about travel and transportation cost and what is normally included in that estimate.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So travel and transportation is considered an indirect cost. So it's not something that you'll typically be billed for by the university or college. Usually this varies based on where you're going to live. So colleges will often categorize it as you're living on campus, off campus, or with family. Oftentimes this number will be somewhere between like $500 to $1,500. And that's really just to include cost of like gas, traveling to and from the university, things like that. It is an indirect cost, so it's not a price of anything specific. It's just sort of a general idea of you'll probably have to pay around this much for this type of category. Same thing with like books and supplies. That's another indirect cost. You won't pay exactly this amount. You can find cheaper books. You can find online PDFs, and you might not have to pay this much. This is just what this particular university is estimating that students will have to pay for these certain things. Other expenses, sometimes called personal expenses, that's another one of, it's just kind of a catch-all for things you might run into. Maybe the student needs a calculator or a laptop or a new backpack. It's just trying to, include some of those things that usually people don't think about when they're thinking about, tuition and fees. So that's for that. We have grants and scholarships. So this is one thing we won't know unless we have the financial aid offer, but we can just, again, pretend. We can say maybe this student got $10,000 in merit scholarships, and maybe they got $15,000 in grants. So for the Pell Grant, you'll see that it's estimating 0, and that is based off of this account's EFC. Remember the estimate for the family contribution was a little over $8,000, which is considered out of the range for Pell Grant. If you're to be eligible for a federal Pell Grant, you usually have to have an EFC usually below $6,000 to get that Pell Grant money. So we'll keep the estimate of 0, and we'll say we didn't get any other scholarships. So this will round it out, and our final net price will be $45,457. Then we'll move it down to the loan section. These are numbers that are typically offered to freshman students. This amount will go up each year that the students in college, they'll be offered a little bit more for their sophomore and junior years and so on. We'll estimate that we get that. The work study is also an estimate, but usually this is capped around some range. So it's never that high, but we'll take the estimate of $2,175. And then we will expect to pay our expected family contribution of $8,888. So we got into the bottom, and oh no, we're a little bit under. We haven't quite made up all that gap to get to that net price. So I'm going to hit adjust payments for me, and we'll see that it put all that extra money into this other loans. That can be things like private loans or other sources. So quite a bit of money there, not doing too well. But we'll hit submit on this one. Now we have all 3 of our financial aid offers together. We can see we got 1 in each category, which is what I intended. So that's pretty good. You could hover over each of these to get the summary of debt on graduation. We're going up for each school. The info button usually includes things like the starting salary, the expectations of what your family will pay each year. So this way, it's very quick and easy to kind of compare each of these financial aid offers side by net price or by total debt. Obviously, I think the winner in this particular case would be Stanford. Lowest net price, lowest debt burden, highest starting salary. But maybe if you didn't get accepted into Stanford and you're looking at other schools, you might want to consider, hey, maybe USC might have a higher starting salary. They're expecting almost 67,000, which is pretty good. Usually some higher starting salaries in that Los Angeles area. But maybe you look at it and you say, well, I'm going to be paying 30% of that salary towards debt. And maybe I don't want that. Maybe I better go Wisconsin-Madison, which is still a great choice. One last thing I want to show you is you can also hit the export button on this, which will let you download an Excel or CSV file, which is usually pretty handy. It'll have a little bit of extra information. It's popping up over here on my other screen. Excel's being a little slow, so we'll let that load. But usually that has other information that you can also find if you click on one of these links for the schools. We have a lot of extra information about the schools, such as admissions odds, costs, majors, rankings, plenty of good stuff. Here's an example of what that Excel sheet looks like. You'll have, just that much more information to go off of. So that's great. And I think that is all I wanted to show you about the financial aid offer tool. So I think I could probably kick it back to Kat and Liz if we have any questions.
Yeah, actually, Grant, we do have a few questions. The first is, do I have to accept all the aid offered to me?
That's a great question. So technically, no, you do not. People usually ask this, especially when they're offered loans. A lot of people don't want to take out any loans, which is certainly something to consider. If you have grants or scholarships offered to you, you usually want to take those. You don't have to repay your grants or scholarships, in a typical situation. The loans you will have to repay. One thing to consider is right now, if you get federal loans, they don't have an interest rate, at least for the next few months, unless they decide to keep extending that. But we'll see. I don't have any more information on how long that will last. I think for now it's till May 1st, but you don't have to take out any loans if you don't want to. You can always, increase the amount your family's paying out of pocket if you have the means to do so. Or you can consider other options like private scholarships as well.
Okay, another question that came through is, what does the work study component of the offer letter mean?
That's another great question. Yeah, so work study is usually, it's usually organized through your university. They might team up with another business to, implement the work study, or it might be working for the university itself. Usually this is a set amount of money that they'll offer the student, sometimes in a stipend that they might get on a monthly basis or on a semester basis to do work, usually about 10 hours a week. Universities typically don't like students to work that much. That is something that usually you'll have to set up with your college or university. And I believe typically they can take that amount off of your tuition bill. Or otherwise they could just pay it to you directly.
Awesome, thank you. And then I think the last one that we had was, if I haven't already received my award letter, when will I get that?
Very good question. It kind of differs for each school. If you're concerned about it, I would suggest reaching out to your school's Office of Financial Aid. But if you haven't received it yet, I wouldn't be too worried. Usually they'll come in like March and April. So if you get to around April and you're feeling angsty, go ahead, send an email to their financial aid offer and see if they have any idea about when they're going to send them out, or if maybe yours got lost or something. Usually that doesn't happen, but there's no hurt in asking.
Well, thank you so much, Grant. I think that was all the questions we had tonight. Thank you everyone for joining. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to email us at help@collegeraptor.com. Additionally, we're always posting tips and facts on our social media, so go ahead and visit our website, and all of the links to our social media are there as well. And in the meantime, be on the lookout for our next live demo. And thank you once again for joining.